You're listening to Built to Convert, the podcast where growth-minded marketers, founders, and creators come to level up. No hype, no guesswork, just bold insights that drive results. Let's go.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Built to Convert, the show where we dive deep into growth-minded marketers, founders, and leaders about what's really driving performance today. We go behind buzzwords and talk about what's actually working across SEO, paid media, analytics, and creative strategy to drive real, measurable growth. This episode is brought to you by Session Interactive. We help net marketing teams drive revenue by dialing in SEO, paid media, and analytics, whether it's fixing broken tracking, running smarter paid campaigns, or building a search strategy that actually converts. We're here to make your marketing work harder. Visit sessioninteractive.com to learn more. All right, we've got a local here, Mark Kutowy, which is awesome, a seasoned strategist in performance marketing and sales. He currently works at BWG Strategy and is also a founder of AI Consultant Agency, where he helps brands and marketers apply real-world AI solutions to modern marketing challenges. Mark brings a strong lens around full funnel optimization, demand generation, and how buyer behavior is evolving. Mark, it's always good to see you. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here, Tyler.
Yeah. Hey, typically we like to start out with just a little overview of what you've been up to. Fun fact, Mark and I kind of indirectly met a long time ago. We're talking like 10 plus years ago. And since then, Mark has really made some serious waves in the community, as well as just within the different agencies that he's worked with, and really applied his strategic knowledge around sales, integration. Mark, tell us a little bit what you've been up to the last few years.
Yeah, the last few years has been an exciting period. I think for all agencies out there, it's been an acquisition market. It's been a roll-up market. And like many others that are probably listening to this or perhaps been guests on your show, I found myself in the middle of a 5-agency roll-up. I found myself in a hypergrowth market and was working on the post-merger integration of 5 digital brands into a single agency for the last 10 years.
It's wild, right? And what you were able to accomplish with them. You started what that is agency, social SEO, social SEO, and now you rebranded to, what was the name now?
They really recently became Intero Digital. Intero Digital means kind of entire digital, like many other brands like ours, like BMG 360, kind of went for that omni-channel type of approach where they rolled in a little bit of paid search, a little bit of SEO. They bolted on some content marketing and Amazon. Similar to the stories you see elsewhere in the market, a lot of agencies have gone to being able to offer and diversify their offerings to many different services to maximize, what benefit they can bring to the customers that they're already working with.
Absolutely. And I realized I got the acronym wrong, BWG. Of course I know BMG. Come on, get it together, Tyler. What are you doing? So now you're at BMG. Talk to me about a little bit about what you're focusing in on there. Was that something you created? They created net new for you? Was that something you replaced and now you're trying to kind of revolutionize the team? Talk to me about some of the core focus areas that you have got going on at BMG.
Yeah. So originally BMG was Barrington Media Group out of Connecticut. And a lot of people kind of knew them for their performance marketing, their traditional marketing. You can think kind of television and radio. They're a big buyer in that space. They do a lot of stuff with the Blue Cross space and a lot of senior care and expense type of clients. A lot of home service-based clients are their clients as well. But really what most people knew them for was that traditional side. So when they did some acquisitions, they went ahead and acquired people that were in the data space, the paid search space. They acquired a CRO company and most notably probably acquired the SEO department, which was founded out of Colorado here. And several of those people were people I had previously worked with for over a decade. And so I had an opportunity to come on and drive some digital business development with BMG. And that's how I kind of find myself working with them. Then, other kind of thing that was interesting, even though I've been doing digital marketing sales for over 25 years, I did spend a short stint of about 5 years working in radio sales. And so I had an opportunity to work on that side. So when I kind of explained to the team, I'm like, I've lived on both sides of it, but I'm digitally native and made a transition into doing a little bit of traditional. It was a perfect fit.
Yeah. Such great perspective to be able to have that traditional knowledge. And of course, now with the immense digital knowledge and prowess that you have currently, 25 years, that's a long time. And, you've seen a lot of change, right? It kind of reminds me of an SEO that I worked with a number of years ago. And she's like, I've been doing SEO since 1999. And I was like, that's great. None of the insights that are applicable then are applicable now. Would you agree with that statement in the sense that maybe the foundational items are still intact in terms of the sales strategy, but now with consumers obviously being able to fully immerse and research as much as possible, they're remixing across platforms for LLM, through search, through social. How are things changed? Broad question there, but how have they changed? How is the consumer reacting? What sort of skepticism or trepidation do they have when they're going through the sales process?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, when I first got into the game, and I probably even could say it's approaching 30 years, we were optimizing for many different search engines. It was pre-Google, right? So we had Dogpile and Lycos and Ask Jeeves. And when I was trying to get visibility on those search engines, I'd have a different strategy I was running per network that I was trying to make you show up on, right? There was this diversification that we had. What we saw was that as Google came on the scene, you saw this kind of monopolization of the search game. You saw a single playbook, and that playbook really felt like technical. It really felt like content, or it really felt like an authority or link type of play. And you could play that rule book. Well, what we're seeing is that kind of unification now is branching back out. And you have all of these, large language models popping up with their own search opportunities. And people have to kind of get back out that old playbook and realize, what do I need to be doing differently, not to just satisfy Google, but to come across everything else. The good news is, if you've done a lot of optimization for your clients in the AI space, a lot of it falls into those same major three buckets. You're doing the right things technically. It still comes down to having unique and valuable content, which has always been kind of what has fed Google. And then you've got those trust signals, whether they're coming from a backlink profile like you might have seen in SEO, or whether they're coming from offsite signals from Reddit or YouTube or wherever else. You're really kind of satisfying those three buckets. So I still kind of subscribe to this kind of standardization. Now, the individual tactics within each one of those is going to vary, whether I'm thinking about optimizing for Google or whether I'm optimizing for Perplexity or ChatGPT. But you will see that consistency in those same three buckets, I think, is still true. I think it's more the same than people really want to believe it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. Are you finding that prospects are coming to you and stating that they are intimidated by AI, or are they just want an agency that's fully immersed in AI? Hey, how can we come up on ChatGPT? Or are you, and then to that question is, how are you guys packaging it up? Is it still just SEO, or are you doing more like digital immersion? I know a lot of new acronyms are coming out in the space, like GEO and AEO and other things like that. I'm curious what you guys are adopting at BMG.
Yeah, I'm working on a blog post right now that kind of pokes a little bit of fun at that, Tyler. I think it's GEO, AEI, or AEO, or AIO, and I said, EIO, like the old McDonald's stuff. It's like there's so many variations on what people are calling it in packaging. But I fully agree that like clients, this is the shiny new toy, right? Their bosses are telling them, how do we show up in this? The conversation around their house from their children or from their spouse or significant other is, I didn't see you when I was using X, engine. And really that's the at-home driver for a lot of people to say, why is this not part of my strategy? I saw my competitor is showing up in XYZ type of engine. I need to be more visible. So I think it's buzzworthy from a new business perspective. I think that agencies that haven't brought, their sales teams up to speed on AI are going to find themselves behind the eight ball if they don't have a product that includes a large aspect of AI in consideration. They're kind of missing the mark with organic. I mean, it's no secret that we've seen overall organic click volume go down. That kind of traffic number is going down in a lot of instances. And one of the examples I've talked about with several clients. I mean, if you're thinking about a home service business like somebody like a plumber. For many years, us in the industry would talk about, well, you need to optimize things about, how to, drain your hot water heater and service it on an annual basis. And that was great blog content fodder. It would attract somebody. It was informative. It was a very top of funnel query that maybe that person, when they are, cleaning out their hot water heater, they find some sediment and then they become a service call, right? And we would kind of hope that you'd be enough of an expert that you could drive in that traffic at some point that you'd convert. Well, as those, traffic searches have now become 0-click events and people are finding their answer in a generative AI experience, well, what's happening is we still have the same amount of conversions at the end of the day. So there's this kind of general fear that traffic is falling and, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, but the conversions have remained the same or grown for the clients we're working with. So if you can increase their visibility, give them kind of the new, I think we're still going to all come out ahead.
Such a great approach that I think we've all eliminate the vanity metrics, right? Stop fixating on that. Impressions are going up. Like, okay, that's a KPI, but that's not a metric that you need to really adhere to or report to necessarily to your executive team, right? It's really fixated. I love that point of just at the end of the day, if conversions are improving, if the conversion rate is improving, isn't that going to satisfy you versus this? But I think human nature, right? We want to see that line go up, right? And if it's not, then I think there's just like a psychological input. What's your thought around that? And how people, because I'm sure you get approached too, is like, we want traffic, right? And at the end of the day, again, it's like, well, do you need to educate the client, re-educate them and state like, what really matters to you? How's your business performing right now? It's based on revenue, right?
Yeah, that business impact, as being the KPI that you're driving to ultimately. I think, as long as you're at an agency where they're really agreeable to having that be the due north for the client, you're going to find great success. It's the agencies that kind of get stuck in the daily ranking report, or they get stuck in the overall impression or view counter. If you're driving revenue and you can tie the success you're doing to, how many average order value increases have I seen? Did I see a conversion increase? Did I go ahead and see that I'm working on revenue as a whole? Are we up quarter over quarter? Boy, when you look at that and the client can really, be in agreement that you're moving the needle for their revenue, whether it's appointments or leads or, e-commerce events that are happening on their website, that you've got long-term success, and that's really where, we'll talk about it a little bit, even going back to knowing the companies that you can benefit by the agency you have. That's a real big thing for leading to success when you're in the business dev role like I am.
Yeah. Again, another excellent point. Talk to me about how you, with things changing so fast, I know that the whole role, your role at BMG is to stay up with the trends on the marketing aspects and different channels, but same question, but how are you doing that with not only marketing, but how are you doing that with sales strategies as well? We're seeing that, hey, new AI tool to integrate with your CRM, you should be doing XYZ in terms of follow-ups. This level of integration, this level of DMs that you should be sending out, right? How do you approach that? One is staying abreast and aware of trends and the cutting edge in terms of marketing, but at the same time on sales and still leading with authenticity, Mark.
Yeah. One of the things that I've seen as being a trend over the last several years is that it's become very easy to produce customized content, whether that's for a website or whether it's for a marketing message that's coming out via email or a LinkedIn connection. There's countless tools that allow, me in a biz dev role to be able to do that in a easier fashion, right? So where I would have to manually, you'd be sitting there saying, Tyler, it's been, great knowing you and we know these mutual people and I'd have to write that. Well, now there's a ton of ways that I can automate that process, whether it's, through an email or whether it's through ChatGPT. The net of that is that the noise level has never been higher. So people's guards have gone up considerably. We see that Google is, not allowing hardly anything through their spam filters when it comes to solicitations and emails. We see that those have really been on the rise. So your deliverability goes down. We've seen that, even if you customize it, there's still a good chance that it's going to look like something that has been written by AI, and people are turning that off. So what I'm seeing right now, as far as a big macro trend, is I'm seeing that there's a return to authenticity and one-to-one. In sales, that means meeting people in person, right, at events, going to trade shows, being at industry events where you've already got successful clients and going to more of those. That's a really good way to win. Going out and seeing people at local meetups and getting behind a Chamber of Commerce event and shaking somebody's hand and seeing how you could help their business, that's become super successful. And then picking up the phone and not being an AI voice, not being a voice that is going to be something that's turned off. If you can get a connection with somebody on the phone, it goes so much further right now than the automation. There's tons of tools that'll make that part of the job easy. I think, like if you're using GoHighLevel or you're using Expandy or you're using whatever service behind the scenes, still think that there's value in that, but where deals are happening are in real interactions.
Yeah. Is this a wild concept, right? Going to see your clients in person, going to those events. It's funny how that's just come full circle, right? Where so many people like COVID, right? Obviously COVID really impacted us a lot, and people didn't want to, we weren't allowed or didn't want to meet up with each other. So yeah, it's impactful that just that handshake mentality. Mark, that's something I've always been impressed with you too, is just as we've been reacquainted and got reconnected here over the last year or so, is just your ability to have that pulse in the community and really be kind of that local and, that national influencer, but really a proponent and advocate for the local community. And how do you stay motivated around that? Because it's a lot, these deep relationships that you've cultivated. I think you and I were talking before we started today is just around wanting to establish deeper connections and realizing that you never know. And not going into a situation with an expectation. Hey, I'm going to close this big engagement or integration. Talk to me about that and just how you kind of carry yourself within the community and how that's benefited you over the years.
Yeah. One of the things that's always, when I first started out in my agency game, I owned an agency with a business partner, and we were doing the work, right? So I've always been a hands-on practitioner, and the piece I liked about that was, it was what can I manipulate on the search engine to deliver the result I have. So I've always had this inquisitive, let me test something, let me kind of figure it out. So compared to other people who are maybe in the sales role, the business development role, who really only practice the art of sales, I've always wanted to stay super sharp on what it is that is happening in the industry. So like, how is the sausage made, right? And I spend more time on that side so that when it comes into an actual, opportunity and I'm talking with a prospect, they're not looking right through me. We talked a little bit also in our preamble a little bit about like, imposter syndrome, right? It's like if you kind of come to a sales call and you're in a meeting with a room of people that know more than you, they're going to see right through that, and you're not going to be able to best represent the agency. If you can come to the table and actually take pride in what you do and understand that art and that craft, they're going to see that as well. And so part of the reason I do it is that, here in Colorado, we have a great community of digital marketers. I've always say we oversample in Colorado. There's so many, and the community has always been a really big part. Shout out to Jim and the agency con and SearchCon world.
So good.
Group of people. And, we think about like things like SEO beers. SEO beers is something that's been a mainstay for Colorado and has been replicated and emulated all around the world at this point, right? So I don't think we're the first. I don't think we're the only ones that are out there, but community-wise, when it comes to digital marketers, it's just a great group of people. And it's so nice to be able to sit around with people and literally break bread and talk to them about the industry stuff that's going on and what's changing and get different perspectives. And people have always been very open to share their secrets. I think that's one of the things that's also really great about the Colorado community.
Yeah, shout out to Jim, shout out to Matt LaQuesta, Noah Lerner, these people that are just making waves in our community, and you're a spot on. We're really lucky to have them, and we're lucky to have some of the top talent here, which is for whatever reason, which is awesome how it all worked out there. One thing that really resonated with me, and I think is just your inquisitive sense and the curiosity component, in addition to differentiating yourself as a sales professional, because you have the practitioner background, right? You have that foundation, which is a lot of sales professionals don't, right? And that, I think, would you agree that a lot of clients can kind of see through that? It's like, hey, Mark actually knows what he's talking about. He's not just a business development rep that came up and now he's trying to just sell me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's something that is trainable in most instances. Like when we think about who to hire when you're growing a sales team, right? I've always looked at I'd rather hire somebody who fundamentally loves the thrill of the chase of sales, right? Mm-hmm. If that's in their DNA, if they really like to go out and find that next kill, if they're looking for who they could help, and they are really good at account-based marketing, and they go, gosh, this company would benefit so much for what I'm doing. If they're passionate about that, I can either train up their skill set when it comes to digital marketing and teach them the fundamentals of what they need to know there, or I can pair them up with a subject matter expert and get that kind of benefit of a second voice sale. And as long as those two pieces are moving along and moving forward, we're going to be really successful. I just happen to be able to kind of play both sides of those roles, maybe better than most can in that instance.
Yeah, I love that. Really, really good point. When is your thoughts in terms of agencies that are coming up, consultants that are coming up? When does it make sense for them to hire a sales rep, business development individual, sales professional, you name it, versus having the founder or another supporting cast member lead sales? What are your thoughts around that? I'm curious, maybe a selfish question here.
$1 million question. It's a good one, Tyler. I think it's one of the last set of reins that most founders want to let go of, right? I think anytime I've worked very closely with founders and helped them through their growth curve, it is the thing that they are going to hold on to the tightest, because as they scale from, say, $500,000 ARR up to $1 million to $5 million, chances are they can keep spinning all the other plates and really feel like they're involved, controlling what clients that they're bringing on. And there's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with bringing on the right clients to keep everybody that's on the team getting the best experience. And so usually it's exciting for a founder to be involved in the business development. It's also something that they are very concerned about letting go or relinquishing. In the big picture, it becomes necessary. You'll either hit a revenue cap where you cannot exceed that on your own personal volume, without letting other pieces of the business unnecessarily go, or you're just going to maximize. And for a lot of agencies, that becomes that kind of top line level that they will plateau on, and they're happy with it. And that's a great place to be if you can maintain that and be very happy with it. But if you want to break through, or if there's aspirations of potential exit, you can't be the person that's in control of all of the business development. You've got to find somebody that can represent your brand and do it in a way that becomes scalable and repeatable. And that scalable and repeatable bit is really, kind of the key.
Yeah, not sustainable long term. Would you say founders think that they are the best salespeople generally, and that's probably not? That's kind of a fallacy overall, or what are your thoughts there? Yeah,
gosh, most founders that I've ever met are amazing at business development because they know their product implicitly. They are able to pull the owner card, and if something is going awry, they can say, look, I'm going to make it good. You've got my word on this being a great engagement for you. And they know who they hired, why they hired him, who's best at what parts of the business. And so, we do see a very strong correlation between founders being really good at business dev. And also, that goes a long way. Just like if you're meeting with a prospective client and they see that your name is on the brand, they are probably going to, believe that what you're saying is 100% true, where they might be a little bit more skeptical if you've got, somebody else representing your brand. So I think that's part of the piece that makes it hard to relinquish, is that they are good at it. And, businesses love to work with founders. And so I think that it typically is something that they're doing well. I love the expression, that nobody loves to be sold, but everybody loves to buy. And I think a lot of founders put people in a very buying mentality because they don't come across as salespeople. They're not trying to use a closing tactic. And, if you sign today, I can give you a 6% discount, but if you sign tomorrow, there's no, that's not sales these days, right? And nobody is really doing that. But I think the authenticity that a founder brings, it just earns so much in a prospect's mind.
Switching gears here slightly, you talked about kind of the integration of AI at BMG, which is impressive. We've always really enjoyed the people and the strategists, the professionalism, and just the acumen that team brings. And it was awesome that obviously they hired you, and really, really excited for what you guys got planned over the next coming years. Talk to me a bit about how you're kind of weaving BMG integrations with your separate business, the AI consultant agency. I want to hear about that and kind of how you're benefiting businesses through that particular agency.
Yeah. The AI component. I mean, anybody that is not just bullish on AI right now is probably under a rock, and I can guarantee they're not listening to this podcast today, because these people who listen are the ones that are on the forefront. And I know you've had a few guests already that really have been on that AI front. But what I see as is, that it is becoming so much a part of the conversation right now in terms of where visibility is going. And if, much like there was a blip on a lot of people's radars a few years back when people were thinking about voice search, right? And it was like, what's your strategy for voice search? Well, that was a somewhat passing, piece where people were like, okay, well, the near me stuff, maybe it's not as, profound as we thought it was going to be, but AI is here to stay. And in the piece that's moving so quickly is that people don't understand, do I just pour a little AI sauce on it, or is there an actual business use case? And so when I first started the AI consultant agency, it was about finding the path to ROI for businesses. And a lot of times that path to ROI is like on efficiencies for marketing or on efficiencies for sales groups. One of the things that brought me into the conversation was I was really looking at my own sales team that I was running. I had about 20 different reps that were all across the country. Those reps were following a sales system that we built and that we unified and we trained on. And we, like I said, brought in several different people from different agencies, and they kind of had to subscribe to this new way of doing things to represent all the facets of business. Mm-hmm. But it was really hard for the sales directors and managers I had to ensure that every SDR and BDR on the team was doing what they needed against that. So one of the first use cases I had was to start using AI recordings of the calls and then being able to extract elements from those to make sure that those were being sucked in and put into our CRM system. And in that process, I could find who was following a sales process versus who was out doing their own thing. And that's really something that is more commonplace, unfortunately, with distributed sales teams. When you have remote salespeople that are working from their home or they're working from a virtual office, it's very difficult to maintain a pulse on what it is they're saying and how they're representing your brand. And so by using AI, you can go ahead and do sentiment analysis across large amounts of data. You could find those people that are misrepresenting a product or perhaps need additional training. And it becomes a really great coaching tool to improve close rates. And that was one of the things that I really first bumped into it with in terms of application that was useful and created a big impact on EBITDA.
Yeah, it's crucial, right? We'd always advocate of recording the calls, right? But now with the advent of Gen AI and other things that are happening in the space and tools that are integrating things so well, that sentiment analysis, that just pinpoint details so much faster to get that person to be better. All right. And to realize the pain points, to realize the pros and cons of the conversation. So yeah, like just a great use case, 100%.
I'd say with that, I think there's another piece.
Yeah.
And when we think about kind of the overall sentiment analysis, when I've looked at, creating profiles of who to hire, right, and kind of like, OMG, I think does a really good job of, their 21 elements of who to hire in the sales process, right? And you can distill what is their 21, elements down to maybe a handful of 7 or 8 that I think are super crucial. But when you still hire that best salesperson, in my experience, and I've hired hundreds of salespeople over my career, what I found is some of the best people that could make that one-to-one connection that we talk about that's important now, those best people who'd be great in a meeting, unfortunately took some of the worst notes. They were not detail oriented. They weren't, if you're sitting down looking on paper or you're typing your notes into a computer, you're not making eye contact with that prospect. Mm-hmm. And so there was always this kind of gap between the people that did great. And what that does in an agency is a really great salesperson has maybe not the best handoff notes. And so they were always kind of, like the team is left wanting more from a production side. And the sales side was like, well, our sales are up, but there's this kind of riff and there's a pain point right in the middle in terms of being able to do that. AI has absolutely solved that in so many ways because, you can take all of those call recordings, you can, bounce it off against a best practice of I'd like to know this information about this client to ensure that we have a great handoff meeting. And then you can provide your production teams with the most impeccable notes that even have timestamps in them with video.
So true. I mean, like think about a meeting. If we were doing it today, I was taking notes. Obviously, this is being recorded. It's just like I wouldn't be paying attention the whole time, right? Yeah. The famous thing is we'll bring up a collaborative Google Doc during a call and we'll write notes together. And it's like it's still someone's writing, right? It's detracting from their ability to kind of have stream of consciousness and respond back to the prospect too. So with the recording capabilities and with AI sentiment and other things, it just makes things a lot easier. That's great. Talk to me in terms of some of I know we obviously with AI, I'm sure you're fairly agnostic with a lot of those tools. Are there particular tools that you really endorse on the sales side, from CRMs to call recording to automated and customizable outreach, things like that you really endorse? And then the same thing maybe on the marketing side, or what you're seeing is really pushing it. I think what we've been noticing lately too, Mark, is just a lot of these tools are just layering on to like ChatGPT and are just not really providing, much that you couldn't probably do yourself. So yeah, I'm curious your thoughts on more of the sales side.
Yeah. So there's a couple different things I'd say to that. One is there's some purpose built WYSIWYG style solutions where somebody's gone behind the scenes, they've gone ahead and plugged in the various APIs, they've built out the agentic flow, they've gone ahead and built the solution for you. And for a lot of sales teams that don't want to necessarily go dive into building out AI solutions, those are great. They're going to exist as a SaaS solution. You can pay your fee as a monthly basis. Somebody else has gone out there and done the dirty work. And I think that person's responsibility of keeping up on, oh, this just changed and we moved from this model to this model. Sometimes it's good to let them do that kind of dirty work. And we see that happening with a lot of different, models that are out there. Occasionally, you're finding that it's somebody that wants to get a little bit more hands-on code and build out something that is a little bit more proprietary. The risk factor on that obviously is that technology is moving super fast.
So fast.
And so if you build the best thing today, in 3 to 6 months, it might not be the best. And so, kind of what I subscribe to is that I've always kind of just kept myself with a little bit of a slush fund of my own money. And I'm constantly trying and testing new tools, and I'm not afraid to leave something behind, right? If you get too attached to something and you're like, this is the tool, if you put all your chips on that bet, somebody's going to go past you. And so, I recommend a little bit of, kind of diversification. I think to, be more specific, I've always really loved Claude. I think Claude does a great job in humanistic writing. I think ChatGPT has caught up quite a bit as of late, minus the old M dashes and every other identifiable piece there. But I think it does a good job in terms of being able to build out custom GPTs. I like Zapier Central. I like N8N for flows. I like people that are using Make. Right, Make is still good. It's a little bit more expensive, but I think the use cases of being able to build out something a little bit more custom is there. Moonlit's got a lot of great opportunities. There's so many out there in this marketplace. It's just important to understand what tool are you going to use for what particular output you need. I love in automation from a sales perspective. I built out a lot of custom GPTs, and those custom GPTs know exactly who I'm writing to and what factors I'm going to do. So I love being able to kind of train them on a corpus of information, whether it be a couple different, case studies that are great for their industry. And then I train it, and then it's like, okay, now I want to reach a CMO with this particular GPT, with this particular output, whether it's helping me to inform something like a LinkedIn outreach or a cold email, or whether it's something that I'm working on in the sales process. And I think it's also just, important to be able to use large language models to reinterpret stuff that you already have. So if I pitch somebody, and maybe I was pitching the director of marketing at some point, and they say, great, I need to advance this to my board or my CFO, I can go ahead and revisit some of the communication I put together with that same perspective and say, make this more appealing to a CFO, make this more appealing to a CMO, and that'll level up some of the conversation points that I have in there. So, like I said, I love being a little bit agnostic. I love, keeping a little bit of a diversified budget to try new things, and not hold on to anything as being the silver bullet right now.
Yeah, I think that last sentence there, what you just continue testing. Know things are changing so rapidly, and don't put all your chips in one particular tool, right? Because there's the next one's coming out, and it makes things a little intimidating, right? It's like, man, I've invested time and energy into this particular tool. Whoa, this other shiny thing's coming out. It's tough too, because things are changing so rapidly. But
yeah, thankfully, our industry is ripe with people who know changing algorithms, and they understand, like, we have a very adaptive industry, which is why I think this is causing such a experience in our industry, is that, like, we're the ones that understand how to keep on the forefront of this type of technology. And we're the ones best suited for trying something new, seeing how it works, I mean, most of us, have a large paid search background. We're used to doing testing. We've run CRO, elements through, countless websites. I look at it the same approach for, AI tools. What tool is going to allow me to do something, this much better? And if that incremental benefit has this profound number difference on revenue, I'm going to do more of that, And so I think keep growing that way.
Yeah, excellent stuff and a lot of cool insights on tools. Mark, it's been awesome chatting with you. Kind of wrapping up here, I'm curious how you stay motivated in this space, right? It's a lot. And then who motivates you? I mean, we had a couple of shout outs already to the community. We're heavy endorsers in that, and we want to support that collectively, both you and I and others. Who do you kind of look up to? How do you gain more knowledge outside of your agency? Obviously, I'm sure there's some internal folks that you really look up to and inspire to in certain cases. But I'm curious, like what types of publications you interact with, and perhaps influencers that you follow that people should be aware of.
Yeah, I'll probably take a little bit of a atypical result or answer to that.
Yeah, sure.
There's just so much cutting edge stuff that's happening on TikTok.
Mm.
I think short form video. I think the YouTube video creators that are out there, they're some of the best in our industry as far as being at the forefront of trying new things. And so I'm uncovering countless new influencers that are on TikTok, or they're big on X, and they're sharing what they're doing. Reddit has amazing communities.
Yeah. So true.
I think that you see things happening on Clubhouse where you can get great community and see questions and ask questions. I think all of these are great spaces for people to be able to use some of their downtime. It's not just about podcasts. It's not just about, books or even some of the journalistic work that's been done online before. You've got to be sourcing information from different places. And I love being in person, right? We talked about that. I think going to conferences that are industry specific is where you're going to find a lot of that thought leadership, and it gets you outside of your own kind of bubble. A lot of times, even here in Colorado, we talk to the same people. We all feel comfortable there. If you talk to somebody that's maybe in the UK, you're going to get a totally unique perspective that might be a little bit of a paradigm shift, give you a new opportunity to try something. So I suppose my answer is TikTok. I love TikTok.
Yeah, it's great. Addicting.
Yeah, it's great. You can end up on some rabbit holes.
Yeah. Well, it's just, it's the landscape, right? As we discussed earlier, just how just search is becoming, it's merging these different things. Google is still the behemoth and likely will remain that, but just people are getting more and more insights from the social platforms, as LLMs too, of course. But yeah, TikTok's the creative component to it. It's pretty impressive what people are putting together. Mark, it's awesome, and really appreciate your time, and thanks for the insight. Super valuable stuff. Where can people engage with you? What conferences are you looking to attend the rest of the year? Talk to me about that and BMG and the AI consultant agency.
Yeah, as a full funnel agency, you can find us in a lot of places, right? A lot of the leads cons of the world that are out there. A lot of the agency con events we'll be at and be sponsoring. Right. Reach out to me via email. The last name is pretty recognizable. You can find me really easily online, and I'd love to talk and answer any questions anybody has. Also big on Twitter, so you can find me there. At Kutowy is the easy way to find me.
Yep. Yeah. Excellent. Mark, thanks again. We'll chat soon.
All right. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Built to Convert. If you're serious about growth, don't just listen. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for new episodes that drop straight into your feed. Until next time, keep building.